you get an inordinate amount of hate. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can bring up an example. Okay, this is kind of embarrassing, but I feel a little bit of shame when I say that I love Ben Shapiro. I really do. I mean, I've watched you for like 9 years. I saw you in high school, right? Like speaking at a college campus. I know your whole story, and I've listened to like every podcast you've been on, but I also listen to people on the left. I love Destiny, if you know who that is. He's great. We had him on the podcast. He's super smart. I love hearing him out. But one time I was on a date, okay? And I pulled up my phone and I was searching up something on YouTube, and boom, clicked on YouTube. Ben Shapiro shows up.
Right.
Immediately like, oh, you listen to him. I'm like, yeah, I do. I think he's got some, great opinions. I like to hear him out on certain things. And boom, kaput. Entire date just absolutely ruined. I'm like, do you know anything
By the way,
about him?
Gentlemen, excellent litmus test. If you do this and the girl runs, you did the right thing.
Bullet dodge, sure.
Bullet dodge.
But I'm just like, do you know anything about him? And she's like, I know he's racist. He's anti-Semite. I'm like, oh my God.
Anti-Semite is my favorite.
Like,
Anti-Semite is definitely my favorite. I love that one.
Yeah. But how do you deal with this amount of hate? And then for the people that are ashamed to say that they enjoy to hear you out on certain things. Like,
yeah. I mean, so for those people, listen, I totally understand that there is cultural weight against listening to anybody on the right with any level of popularity. And it doesn't matter, by the way, that my views are significantly more nuanced on a wide variety of topics than I think that people believe they are, right? Like if you ask people on the left, are you like a huge super Trumper? And then I tell them I didn't vote in the 2016 election because I thought that both candidates sucked. Or that when I endorsed Donald Trump in the 2020 election, if you watch my endorsement video, I talked about all of his personal failings and all of his personality flaws. And then I said I like his policies better than Biden. Right? Those sorts of things, they don't know. I mean, they don't know any of this stuff. But that's because the media tend to paint, and when I say the media, I really mean sort of the YouTube media. They paint a very sort of one-sided picture. Listen, we had to call up and threaten to sue The Economist because in headline, they called me an alt-right personality. The alt-right hates my guts. I've gotten death threats from the alt-right. They literally arrested some guy for trying to kill my family a few years ago. The FBI did. He went to jail for a couple of years because I was too not alt-right. Like I was the number one target of online hate in 2015. Like in all of the world, online anti-Semitism, 2015, 2016, I was the number one target, and it was almost entirely the alt-right. Like, none of that matters because the media have decided that we're all in these sort of reactionary boxes. That's why I take pride in the fact that we have people from so on my show, if people listen to my show, they'll recognize that I frequently, I'd say at least once every couple of weeks, will tell people, you should listen to my show and then you should go listen to Positive America. I literally say this on the show on a routine basis. Go listen to the other side, listen to my side, see which one you think is more convincing.
I can attest to that.
This happens all the time. At some point, we should put together a montage of how many times I've told people to go say, one of the hosts of Positive America went on MSNBC and said that social media should censor us and take us off the line effectively. Like it's not an even game. So I understand why people feel that way because there is a weight of, that is also why you get the counterculture thing that you were asking about before. Yeah. Because when there's that much weight against a thing, people sometimes take, and then when they take a look at the thing and they realize it isn't what they've been told, it opens up new worlds to them. So in some ways it's really negative and really bad because it's like people think a thing about me that isn't true. But on the other hand, the minute that people engage with the content and they realize that isn't actually what the content is, they're like, what else am I being lied about? Because this isn't the person that I was promised. I was promised somebody who hates black people. I was promised somebody who hates immigrants and somebody who hates Muslims or hates Jews, most bizarrely, or hates gay people or something. And instead, what they get is not that. They're really bewildered by it, and they think, okay, so I've been lied to about a lot of things. So in some ways, the media's sort of universalistic homogeneity with regard to what they say I am and the contrast with what I actually am is not the world's worst thing. As far as taking the incoming and taking the hate, so back in 2017, 2018, I used to obsess about Twitter, like really obsess about it, because Twitter is just a giant ego machine, especially if you're somewhat notorious. If you have a certain number of followers, that the verified stream or the reply stream before there was verified was like, you want to feed your ego? We all tend to think of ourselves as like the center of our own movie and the center of our own story. Well, Twitter fed that because there's literally people who are, when you're famous, there's literally people who are talking about you every moment of like thousands of tweets an hour just about you. And I watched, my friend Andrew Breitbart. I think Twitter basically killed Andrew. I mean, Andrew was obsessed with Twitter. This is in the early days when 50,000 people was a lot to be following you on Twitter. And he had, a big following at that point. And he would just obsess about what people were saying on Twitter and reply and respond and all of that. And it was really hard. If I would trend on Twitter, and I trend on Twitter, I'd say once every 3 weeks, almost like clockwork. And at least before Elon took over. Now it's a little bit more rare because the algorithms tend to be a little bit more honest about what's happening. But for several years, it was like once every 3 weeks I would trend. And every day that would happen, it would like ruin my day. And finally, a few years ago, my wife said, it's ruining your day. You have kids, you have things to do. Just take Twitter off your phone. Because you think everybody is watching Twitter because you're watching Twitter, but nobody is watching Twitter. If you actually just get off the phone and you walk around, there'll be a bunch of people who listen to your show and they'll say how much they enjoy your show. And if you mention to them what's going on Twitter, they will have no idea what you are talking about. And it is 100% true.
But what about going to college campuses and seeing people protest? And
that I always find funny. I mean, like, I always find it funny because first of all, like, good for you. You feel passionately about the thing. I have no problem with you going and protesting me. You want to do that. Enjoy your First Amendment. That's fine. The things they protest me about are some of the dumbest things ever. Like, my favorite one was when I spoke at Boston University, and they protested me because they said I was a racist. There were like 200 people outside saying I was a racist. And I gave like a 45-minute disquisition on the history of race in America that was almost entirely about the evils of white supremacy for the first, 200 years of America's existence. And like going through beat by beat. And they're protesting. It's like, what in the speech do you... I said this at the time. I was like, I need you to explain to me what in the speech you disagree with. Or I spoke, I think it was at Stanford. And the entire speech was just about how nasty and terrible the alt-right was. And I was getting protested as a fascist. And I was like, I don't understand what you want exactly. Like, I'm not doing this for you. And I'm fine with you being pissed at me. That's fine. But do you not have ears? Like, the thing that I'm saying... What is the thing that I'm saying right now that you find to be so dangerous and so terrible and so insulting that you are protesting me as all of these terms, racist, sexist, homophobe, all this kind of, like, what is the thing that is scaring you so much about what I'm saying that I'm getting mislabeled those things? Like, name me the comment that I said, and then we can discuss whether I think that comment is taken out of context or whether I misphrased it or whether I think it's right. Like, we can talk about those things. But, it rarely goes like that.
So whenever you're walking around in public outside of the college campus protests and stuff like that, have you ever gotten somebody that comes up to you and actually starts saying super mean things or like slandering you? Because
it's pretty rare.
It's rare.
It's rare.
Okay, so I've personally never experienced anything like that, but I've probably gotten thousands of hate comments online.
Yes.
But it's never happened to the point where I meet someone in person and they've never said
the internet is a giant hate machine. I mean, like because it's anonymous. How many times have you gone up to somebody and berated them in public? Never, ever. Even people you don't like.
But I also don't leave hate comments.
I understand, but
that's
like,
true, yeah.
That's and really neither do I. Although I'll get kind of combative on Twitter. But how many people do you know who have gone up and like berated randos in public? It just doesn't happen that often. When they do, you think they're like a crazy person. So it really does not happen nearly as much as you think it does. What you do get are like death threats in the mail. You'll get people sending crap to your house, like that kind of stuff.
Does that worry you, like, ever for your personal safety?
Of course. I mean, we spend 7 figures a year on my personal safety. Yeah.
7 figures a year on personal safety. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way that it goes.
Yeah. And then what about traveling? Do you ever fly?
We travel with security.
Do you travel, fly private?
We do fly private. It depends where. I mean, if I'm flying abroad, it's difficult to fly private. But domestically, we'll fly private sometimes. We'll fly commercial sometimes. Depends on what we can do. I mean, you try to avoid particularly public places, not really because you think that somebody's going to take a shot at you, although they might, but more because there's the possibility of somebody coming up to you and taking a swing at you or something. And then it's a no-win situation, because if you take a punch and go down, then the entire it's like, oh my God, look, somebody punched him, and they punched the Nazi. And if you fight back, then you go to jail. So that's that's why security is really not there to stop me from getting killed. It's really there to stop these sorts of things from happening and let people know, like, if this happens, there will be people there to stop the thing. That's really what security is more about.